What? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the AV Experience, where we were supposed to go live last night, but blew all of you off for a projector comparison. It went well, but we're not going to talk about that here. So get your hopes up and then completely dash them away. But we're all tired because we were up far too late, and we're here to talk about analysis paralysis and how there's so many things going on in home theater that you find yourself just stuck, unable to make a decision. I know I saw you gentlemen here last night, but I don't think I asked you how your weeks went. How did they go? Jonathan, start with you.
I've been on call this week, so a little busier with work. I've been watching some more Invincible series on Amazon Prime.
I need to watch that.
It's great.
I liked the first two seasons more than I liked the third so far. Bob, do you feel that way, or do you like the third one?
So my wife and I were watching it, and we realized we hadn't watched. So they drop them like half seasons, and we watched the first half of the second season, and we realized we hadn't seen the second half of the second season. So we're just finishing that now. Then we have to start season 3.
Season 3, I have a feeling you've probably seen all over the place, and I haven't even gotten that far yet. But the episode 10 is supposed to be like one of the hottest episodes of any TV show ever. Like by
what? Hot in what capacity?
So something's supposed to be big happening. There was something that big happened in season 2 ending, which is fantastic, actually.
Yeah.
At any rate, I'm not going to do any revealing here, especially if you haven't started watching season 3. But I have a suspicion I know what's coming, and I think it's because they changed the metering of season 3, kind of changed the dynamic. And I think it's like, at this point, we watched a lot of movies and stuff. It's foreshadowing pretty hard what's going to happen, I think. So we'll see if I'm right or wrong.
I haven't seen any of it. So
having read the source material, I know some of what's happening anyway. So,
well, then you're a cheater.
Well, I read that years ago. It's not like I was like, hey, I'm going to watch this cartoon show. So let me get all the books and suddenly read them.
Well, when Walking Dead was all the phenom at the time, I had a coworker that had read the comics.
Yeah.
And he's constantly like saying, oh, this is going to happen next. I'm like, shut up. You ruined it for me. Shut up. It's supposed to be a big surprise.
It's the same thing with like the Wheel of Time series. I had read all those books back in college. And they're great books, but they're very, very long. And some of them are like 1,400 pages, little paperbacks. And they had some of the worst bindings ever in them. And if you open the books too far, like hundreds of pages would just fall out.
Well, it's your own pathway book. You remember those?
They'd break out in sections. Yes. Like you'd have a section of like 50 or 80 pages just fall out of your book.
See, that's how it was supposed to be. It was, if you do this action, go to page 687. And that's all the Wheel of Time wanted you to do. It was just, didn't tell you that. It was trying to show you, though. Like the Lord of the Rings Ring of Power. I was so happy. My 6-year-old looked at me and goes, today, first time, Dad, I want to watch Lord of the Rings. I'm like, yes, I've made it. My 6-year-old daughter wants to watch Lord of the Rings. So we spent 3.5 hours and watched the first episode. And when the Balrog came out, her face, it was amazing. It was amazing.
Well, you were watching that down in the theater too, though, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
She looked at me like it was Godzilla, and it was amazing.
The sound on that Balrog scene, all the goblins and stuff, is still holds up so well even today.
Have you seen the remaster?
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Oh man, so good. I was actually, when I was watching it, thinking this needs to go in my demo reel, because it's one of those scenes where everybody's seen it, but they haven't seen it like that, and that was
in Atmos and everything.
Oh man, so good. That mix is hot. The whole thing is super hot. I was when I first turned it on, I was probably 10 dB below reference, or where I can't say below reference, where I normally am. And it was, I knew as soon as it came on that my wife would just be looking at me. And I turned over, and you guys know the look that you get. I got the look. I got the look. And I knew that, and I was trying to turn it down, but I wasn't fast enough. Oh man. Great. So she was very excited about that. She liked it. It's just long, so it's hard to keep a 6-year-old's, attention for 3.5 hours per episode. Initially, yesterday, she said, I want to watch all 3 of them. We're going to do it all day. And
I remember her saying that. I was like,
I knew that wasn't going to happen.
12 hours on the couch watching Lord of the Rings.
She was in it. Like, in it. Sometimes she would cover her face. She thought it was scary when the orcs and stuff came out, but she liked it. So we'll watch The next
Was
one
she scared of dogs?
tomorrow. No,
What-
no. I think it was more of like the orc scenes when Saruman was out and they were building the orc army and stuff, the Uruk-hai, and they were doing all of that. It's just new to her. I mean, she watches people get eaten on Jurassic Park and stuff. And I asked her, "Isn't that scary?" No. So I don't know. I don't know. I guess that stuff isn't real. She hasn't encountered very much fantasy yet, so it's new to her. So maybe that's why. But she was all about it. Then they went to the park and got ice cream, and I've just been trying to set up Crestron. Super excited about that. Bob, what have you been doing? How was your week?
And my son had robot camp this week. My daughter's had a softball camp this week. So I've been kind of shuttling kids every which way. That was been most of my week.
Shuttling.
Yeah.
We haven't had any snow.
Well, we kind of did that.
Well, I wasn't here. Didn't you have like 60 or 70 degrees that day? And then it was blizzard conditions at night.
Yeah, I think I rode Tuesday afternoon in shorts and a t-shirt. And then the next day it was like 35 degrees in the evening.
What is that?
We had like 40-mile-an-hour winds all day. And then Thursday was fine again.
Yeah, that was what we got on Tuesday because I was in Breckenridge, and we got 10 inches of snow, and they were calling for 60-mile-an-hour gusts. It didn't get that windy, but
no, that part's not.
No, that's not the fun part. But that was Tuesday. Wednesday morning was great. I sent you that picture of what that run looked on the back bowl. That looked great, and it was great. So that was a lot of fun. Anything else between you gentlemen? Anything in home theater?
I mean, I had the Sony Bravia 9 projector all last week, but we're not going to talk about that right now.
A little hint. We spent you guys spent the whole day yesterday. I spent 3 or 4 hours with you guys. More than that, I guess 5 or 6 hours.
So to anybody that doesn't know, we have a Bravia 9, so the Sony 8100. We have a Epson QL 7000, and then there is an NZ 900 on its way. It's shipping, so it'll be here. And we're going to do a comparison, I think, at this point.
Saturday night.
Kramers.
Yeah.
It's just for fun. This isn't a public comparison. This is more for us just to see what they do. I don't know that we're going to talk about it. We might, given how the last one went and people not liking what we said, and then it seems like that thread it's like coming full circle now, but neither here nor there. I haven't read any of it. It's just from hearsay, so don't crucify me. That's what we did. Bob and I played with the QL 7000 all day. I really liked it.
I did too.
It did 600 nits on my 165 on a.
Well,
it wasn't the whole screen. It was
you didn't have enough throw. It was on a 104-inch screen. So
yeah, I didn't have enough throw. But we're going to divert here for a second. Did you guys hear in the chat? Big Street Cinema says, "Did you hear about the EU banning Sony projectors because parts from China and Russia?" Did you guys hear about that?
We heard about it the other day. We talked about it, but we didn't know why at the time. So interesting.
Russia.
It's China and Russia parts.
Yeah, we heard about that yesterday.
I guess Sony won't find another. I don't know anything about it. This is just guessing. They don't have a way to get another supplier maybe in the meantime, and they just thought it easier to get rid of the EU market. Interestingly enough, I did not see the GTC 380 on the list.
Okay. Is it was it just specific projectors, or
was
it?
There was a press release. I won't share the press release because I don't know that I'm supposed to. But in that press release, maybe it's multiple pages. No, it is multiple pages, but it doesn't include the 380. It's all the residential stuff. There's no.
So Sony suspends sale of home theater projectors. So is that just the Bravia 789 then?
There's a couple other ones on here, but there's none of the big boy stuff that I'm aware of.
Evidently, lamp projectors are now banned in Europe also due to mercury.
Yeah, they've been talking about that for about a year.
Yeah.
Interesting. I saw something else interesting on AVS forum, but this was actually announced in November. I just ran across it into this last week that there's a big Chinese manufacturing company that's going to start mass manufacturing LCOS panels.
I saw that.
And in that instance, make competition, assumably, for Sony or JVC. With like the Chinese probably lifestyle type projectors, we don't know. It's
but
they're gonna start
somebody's got to. Do Sony and JVC make their own panels, or do they source them like everybody does with TV panels?
I don't know who
I
the fab
imagine
is
they're
for them.
sourced because the DLP stuff, a lot of it is TPI, right? TI. Sorry, added an extra letter in there.
Yeah, Texas Instruments makes most of those.
So I'd imagine they're probably sourced, but having more manufacturers and competition in the market, I think, is good for everybody. I think that's great. So that was news. Then the other news I saw was there was a post. I don't know the legitimacy behind it about Sony's new upcoming tech for TVs. Did you guys see that?
I didn't see that one.
And what's his name? The big TV guy from, is it China, Taiwan? The YouTube channel. He did a thing on it. I haven't watched it yet, but supposedly there's something big that Sony's working on that's gonna replace OLED. I don't know. Again, I don't know how legitimate it is. I don't have any sources. I didn't fact check any of it. It was just I got sent this, so I don't know.
OLED to me is one of those technologies where I cannot feasibly imagine anything better.
Micro.
I haven't seen. I don't even see any flaws with my OLED, so I don't know where it goes from here. But I remember thinking this before about other display technologies, and then sure enough, it gets surpassed. So
yeah,
I mean, we're still not really, other than a power standpoint, we're not really surpassed what plasma was from a refresh rate, from a self-emitting standpoint. Those were great displays.
I do think my OLED. I mean, I have a 64-inch plasma over there. I do think my OLED's a little bit better, but that OLED is the plasma is surprisingly close, given that it's 10 years.
1080p.
Yeah, in 1080.
Yeah.
Imagine if you had a 4K plasma and kept up with tech for as long as OLED's been out.
Sure,
be pretty good. Do you guys like having the overlay for chat?
As long as the chat stays PG, then we're okay with that. Occasionally we get something in there that's not that way, so we'll have to keep an eye on it, but sure.
Okay.
I looked it up. Evidently Sony and JVC each make their own panels.
They do.
Each make their own.
That's what Mr. Google says.
Yeah.
Okay.
I also was on that same thread that was talking about this. There was some commentary saying that LCOS is kind of a more complex technology to create and use in projectors. And they gave the example of Epson having a short duration, a little step into LCOS with the the 10,000 series and the 10.5 series.
Yep.
And then they backed out because it was complex and not as profitable as they wanted. So they were saying like, this will be interesting to see where it goes. It's not as proven or as readily accessible, like as easy to copy as some of the other technologies. So yeah, I'll be curious to see where this goes in 5 years.
Yeah.
MW says, I don't see Sony's new RGB panel being better than OLED. I mean, maybe not initially, but I think you got to start somewhere, and you got to start and then start building the technology out and getting more and more of the market share. It's really tough to launch something and just take over the market. I think it's got to mature. It's got to grow. It's probably not going to be great at the beginning. It may be great in very limited circumstances, but I think it's nice to see something new and to have the market not stagnant technologically. So,
especially from a refresh rate and an efficiency size. I mean, you're starting to get back into that same heat generation issues. I mean, look at how hot those video walls get.
Yeah. They are a lot bigger though. I mean, any TV that's that size is putting out a pretty good amount of heat.
Oh, just imagine if you had a plasma video wall that size. Be like standing in a sauna.
There were some big ones, and they did generate a tremendous amount of heat. Absolutely.
Yeah, but I still remember using the plasma up in my loft upstairs, and anytime you'd have it on because we'd walk by it to go to the bedroom, you could just feel the heat radiating off it
on your arm. Yeah, as you walk by, absolutely.
I still have one in our guest bedroom.
We still have one in our bedroom.
Yeah,
mine died, and I tried to buy some parts and didn't succeed in fixing it.
Look at this plebeian without a plasma TV.
Makes me sad.
I gave away my my Panasonic 800U that I My wife got me as an engagement present.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
Kevin's Journey says, I read somewhere that micro LED requires 162 inches for 4K resolution at this moment in time. It all depends on the pixel pitch. So the smaller the pixel pitch, so as you move down from like 1.2 to 0.9 to 0.87, you can start shrinking things down. But yes, you are constrained by that pixel pitch. And until they can get things smaller, there is only you can only make the wall so small to get a certain resolution because the pixels are a certain size. So if you want a certain resolution, your wall's this size. If you go above that with the same pixel pitch, you're going to get into higher resolutions and custom resolutions, and then you need custom EDIDs and video. They all need video processors, but it gets a little complicated. But yeah, you're right. Anything before we jump into today's topic? Do we want to talk about 13th Warrior?
I do, but there's also a question up there. Do you see video walls replacing projectors at some point?
Yeah.
That's a
Do
reasonable
you?
I don't want to see any lines in my image. If they can get rid of those lines, like for instance, the QL7000 last night, I walk right up to it, and that is a sharp, pixel perfect image. If that was a video wall, wouldn't I see where the lines are as you walk up to it, and not be a perfectly uniform?
But at that same point in time, when you walk right up to it, you can see the weave on the screen, but you don't see it from the seating distance.
It depends on how. I haven't even been in front of these real high end, and I know, Ryan, you have, but I haven't been in front of these real high end video walls. I just don't want to see black lines that kind of ruin, like say that bright scene from Godzilla where he's shooting the fire and it's just a white screen and stuff. I don't want to see a grid pattern.
Yeah,
I think we talk about this a lot. Use the technology, use the speaker, use the room EQ, use the options you have to fix an issue. There is a place and a time for video walls. I don't think they're there yet to replace projection. I don't, for me at least.
The other problem is you can't put speakers behind them.
That's a big thing for me.
And it's going to become a reflective or an acoustically reflective hard surface that's going to take up your whole front wall. So that's got other issues from an acoustic standpoint.
Yeah, but behind your, well, I guess unless you have a baffle wall.
Yeah.
It's different problems. You got problems with projection. You got problems with video walls. It's just different. You got different things that you got to overcome. They're not ready for me yet. Jonathan, you say no, not yet.
I just haven't seen one. If you can see a big grid on brighter screens, I don't want it.
What about you, Bob?
I mean, I don't have a problem with going back to Phantom Center. If I get a big video wall, I have a Phantom Center right now. But I mean, the issue there is you're going to be spread. The bigger you're going to make that screen to take advantage of its technology, the further you're going to be pushing left and right channels to the sides, unless you're going to try to do a integrated speaker in one of those vibration type panels that they've put in some of the TVs. It's going to be a tough point for an audio to get really good acoustics, and you're gonna have to pick the side that you focus on. I'd rather have a slightly worse picture and better sound because I listen to more music than I do. I mean, I would focus more on the music than I would lean towards better video.
Now you're saying, Jonathan, that doesn't matter to you. It's more the fidelity of the image and the grid lines. That's it.
I just don't even have any experience to really talk to it. I've said before, and I'll stay by that same statement. If there could be like a 120-inch OLED that was at a reasonable price, say $5,000 or $10,000, I'm in, and I'll figure the rest out because the OLED quality is so much better to me. I haven't even seen. I mean, I've seen like a high-end OLED video wall at the zoo, but it wasn't a home theater version. Like it's just meant for blinding brightness. And the grid pattern was horrible, and the heat off it you could feel from 10 feet away. Like that's not going to work enough.
I want you both to plan on, if you can, going to CEDIA.
I really want to.
I've never been.
You can go under Ascend, and I think it'll be worthwhile for you guys. Just to see a lot of the stuff that is out there. Because it's one thing to talk about it, especially the video stuff. I mean, sound's hard to reproduce in a lot of these environments, but being able to see the video walls, to be able to see the big bad boy projectors and stuff that most people don't get to lay eyes on, and that kind of stuff.
Anyway, we've seen a surprisingly large number of them these days.
To a point, but there is
There's a step tier
There is
above
a
that we
bigger
haven't
step
seen.
above that hasn't been showcased, especially the video walls, and there's getting to be more and more of them. So
Yeah.
if you guys want to go, or at least September, I think it'd be
that
you'd
sounds
have
great.
fun.
Yeah.
So Kevin says, have we seen a 97-inch OLED? And I think most of us, Bob, have you been over to Kevin's house?
I went with you.
Okay, to see the 97-inch OLED. That was
Yeah.
Tim and I that went that night.
Was it? Did I go with someone else?
You must have gone with someone else.
Maybe I went with someone else. Yes, I have seen his TV.
So yes, we've seen a 97-inch OLED in a home theater. That particular room, it's too close to that TV.
We had one at M-Wave last year. Also, there was one sitting out in the lobby.
It was for Mad
VR. So we've seen two of them now.
I'd still want to have like a nicer seating distance with a larger screen versus sitting like what does Kevin sit like 4 or 5 feet away probably from that 97?
Really close.
Maybe even 3 or 4 foot. It's close.
No, it's not quite that, but it's like 6.
It's close.
Maybe a little less.
Imagining as you guys are saying the seating distance is getting closer, that Kevin has come up with some contraption and the 97 is strapped to his head. And
He's got like a
looking around.
65 or 70 degree
97.
viewing distance. It's very close, and it's
It is
incredibly
very close.
immersive, but it's very, very bright also.
We've talked about this before. It is immersive, but your brain still knows that TV's 100 inches.
Yeah.
No matter how close you sit to it, there is a subconscious psychological feeling to knowing how large something is.
I think it's because you have other visual reference points in the room.
Sure.
If it was in a completely black room and you were sitting that close to it with no frame of reference around it, I think it would be a different presentation.
Potentially.
I'm going to try to find a graphic of it if I can. We might have to come back to it, but I'll look. Oh, here it is right here.
He has a picture in the home theater crawl thread, I thought.
Yeah. So let me share just to show how close that is, because it's close. And frankly, it's a limitation of his room. Like he doesn't necessarily want to be that close. It is what it is. But can you guys see my screen now?
No.
Oh.
No.
You haven't shared it.
I did share it.
Oh, put it up again. I got it.
But yeah, from a small room immersion standpoint, that's incredible. I mean, like just
Are you sharing it?
I'll share it here. I mean, I am sharing it. Do you see it now?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, so over here, I just did a web search with his name. This is where you're sitting on the couch, and here's the 97-inch OLED. So, like I mean, it's on you. and
I think you can feel the heat on the TV.
Here's another picture. So, I mean, I don't know the exact distance there, but you're probably right. It's probably 6 foot or something. It feels close.
Well, because by the time you recline the seats, I think those seats recline, don't they?
Yes, a little bit. I would prefer a little like a larger one, like 100. Difference between 100 and 120 is pretty big, even though it's only 20 inches. It's a large increase. So 10 foot away from 120 or something would probably be what I would be interested in.
Well, it's a large increase percentage wise. Absolutely. Screen area goes up immensely.
Yeah, I struggled on that for a while. I didn't want to go to the bigger screen, just because it meant moving the speakers out. But now going to AT, I'm going to go significantly bigger.
Herc Driver says, so just get an iPad, sit 8 inches from it, and get a set of earphones. Why are we spending house money on these expensive home theaters?
I mean, I watched this week's movie like this.
It's just
no, you didn't watch it like that. You had it sitting on the floor.
Well, that was the second half of it.
He was sitting at crisscross applesauce with his earbuds in, with the phone on the floor, like my daughter watches her iPad, over by my pool table, just sitting there. And then later he's like, why is my phone on full? Oh, I was watching the movie.
Yes. Because that does also make a huge difference in your phone, is turning the gain all the way up on the screen. When you turn the brightness all the way up, it looks significantly better. Just like other projectors, when you turn the brightness all the way up.
Well, as long as things scale linearly.
Yeah.
So let's talk about today's topic. Today's topic is...
We're doing the movie first, or we're doing topic?
Oh, yeah, movie. 13th Warrior.
It's one of my absolute favorites.
Why?
You guys might not like it. I love it.
Why?
So I love the score. I love the grandiose like theme of it. I love the men's like whatever happens masculine attitude that's just like on another level. I enjoyed the story a lot. It leads you into making conclusions about what's happening without like spoon feeding you. And I really like that. So like I'm watching this with my 13-year-old daughter last night, or not this week, it wasn't last night. And she's asking me all these questions. I'm like, just wait a minute and you'll figure it out. Like, just stop trying to like figure this out. It will unfold, like, well, how did he learn their language? Like there's multiple things in there, like him fighting the other warrior. I thought it's cleverly written, and I just really enjoy it. Like, I don't know what to say. It's one of those that just really sticks with me. Did you watched it on your stinking cell phone, like and 2-channel? Like that's not the experience. The score on that movie is awesome. One of the best, like Lord of the Rings level score.
I didn't have it in a better format. That would be the other issue.
Internet Archive.
Shh. Yes.
I realize that it's not everyone's cup of tea. Certainly the scores on like IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes and stuff would indicate that, but it does it for me. So why didn't you like it, Ryan?
There's a lot of movies I like.
It wasn't that I didn't like it. It was fine. It was fine.
All right, I'll talk.
Music was good.
Also, music some of the I mean, did you watch it in like 5-channel? It's not in Atmos. It's an older one.
Yeah.
The upmix on the 5-channel, like when he's in there's some very good, like the battle sounds are excellent. The thunderous waves are excellent. When he goes into the tent and they're kind of like talking about different people, and it's like all the chatter's going on, and they're washing their faces with the bowls. Like that scene sounds very good. There's voices coming from all the room. It sounds like you're in the middle of the room. When they're in the I don't know what that thing's called. Basically, like the lobby area of that castle, if you will, the wooden structure.
The thing that should have been Hrothgar's Hall.
Yes, that when they're in there and they're having conversations and there's people muttering around the room, the sound's very well done. It's well recorded. The first attack of the demon creatures on the people in there, when they're all huddled up around, like kind of star shaped on the ground, all the noises that are coming around from the house, it still holds up well. It's not the bassiest thing in the world or anything like that, but the surround is well done in the style of like Gladiator. I would say it's like, I always like Gladiator soundtrack and Gladiator score and Gladiator sound effects. And I think this is at that same tier.
I don't know about that.
All right. So I'll do a little bit of background on the movie because I had to go to dive into it and I couldn't help myself. The same guy who directed this did Predator, Die Hard, Hunt for Red October, and a couple other things. So I mean, the director
he's a seasoned veteran.
As a seasoned veteran who had some pretty good action hits behind him. The book was written by Michael Crichton. So
one of my favorite authors.
It was also written by Michael Crichton on a bet.
I didn't know that.
So like someone bet him that he couldn't write like a good story about Beowulf or like an entertaining version of Beowulf. And this was his attempt at making an entertaining version of Beowulf.
Do you guys remember the Beowulf movie?
Yes.
Which one? The one with Christopher Lambert?
I saw the old one in high school, I think, but there's a new one with Angelina Jolie.
The one with Angelina Jolie.
Oh, there's also like really bad kind of like techno, not quite steampunk, but like, that kind of like pseudo advanced, but also medieval tech kind of version with Christopher Lambert. That's not great, but I like watching it.
I never saw that one.
But anyway, so it was basically, it was taking together two stories. It was one is like what's his name? Ahmed Ibn. I can't remember.
Like 10 names.
Yeah, but what's his actual? What's the 3 names? Anyway, that character is another historical, like kind of Middle Eastern guy who was sent out by the Caliphate or somewhere, whatever the ruling organization was, to go help assist converts to Islam. So that was another. It was kind of like mashing together two tales.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of how they put that together. But it's that whole kind of stranger in a strange land feel that you got out of it, that everything else was. So it's tacking that kind of like trope on top of Beowulf.
Mm-hmm.
So you had the guy who was thrust into a situation where he doesn't know anything about. I like the concepts. I think movies like that are generally pretty good, where you have the one person who's the fish out of water trying to adapt to a culture that they don't understand and the ways that they go about it. I think it could have been done a lot better than it was. My kind of big issues were like his religion. They try a newer version of that one would have paid a much better focus on his religion and his integration of that. Like he was only a devout Muslim when it was convenient for the story. So like, you see him pray at the end before that one battle, but he wasn't praying the whole rest of the series, the thing. He didn't, wasn't drinking alcohol, but drank, had the mead.
because it was honey based, and that wasn't against.
I get that. I get that. And that's that whole thing was supposed to be. But like he kind of only focused on that aspect when it was convenient. The costuming was kind of weird because you had like that one guy in full plate armor 3 or 4 centuries before it should have existed. So
I guess you could kind of place it. I mean, it's like kind of just like
it's like 10th century.
It's like anonymous time frame, but I didn't look up the history of the people involved or anything.
Right, but it should have been about like 10th century. So the armor was like way out of like they just the skew at which they did was kind of way off.
You're nitpicking at this point. There's no way you knew it was 10th century when you're watching the first time. I'm like, that armor's out of phase.
But if you looked at the armor and costume that they wear, like I did like the transition where he's like went from his traditional garb to wearing like more of their equipment, girding more in their armor, wearing chain in that last battle. I thought that was kind of a neat transition as it became closer to the Northerners, and then at the end reverted back to his ways and got back on the boat and left. I thought that aspect was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
It reminded me a lot when I watched it of Last Samurai, which was kind of another similar situation. But I thought like the way Last Samurai was done with the cultural immersion, with the way that, you know, like Tom Cruise's character and that really integrated into their society and kind of adapted to it, I thought made it much more emotionally involved. They kind of just, you miss the connections because they kind of rush certain things where like his attachment with the Northerners, and they just kind of died, and he like they were supposed to feel bad, but you never had an emotional connection to them.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Did you watch, since you like Last Samurai better, did you watch Last Samurai on your phone in 480i with commercials?
There was no commercials. And it wasn't in 480. I got a better version it was the one I watched. I would have watched it at home, but I tried to do it the night before and it didn't work. So I had to go watch on my phone while my kids were at open gym playing on the playground. I just didn't have time to do it.
So, you know, when we had M-Wave this last summer and the Black Swans were in that room and they were playing like orchestra scores on some of those trailers, to me, this was like, this score is worthy of doing that kind of showcase where you got like an over-the-top speaker, you're playing it 15 over reference, and that orchestra score is incredible. And I bet that would sound great on your Black Swans. Or if you like, were you listening to it like louder?
The music was great. Music was great. The movie was, it was okay. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't Gladiator level.
I would watch it again if I had a better copy of it, just to see it. I had the same problem with your last suggestion where I only got to watch it in 2-channel German and I missed all of like the 5 months around. But that's all it was streaming in. Like it was like a version I could get. I had it on Peacock or something like that, and I just happened to have it. I'm like, oh great, I got the movie, and I'm watching it. I'm like, this is in 2-channel, and like this, what? And then you're talking about these great explosions and things like that, and I'm like, that didn't happen. Maybe I'm actually gonna have to rent a movie one of these days.
Oh man. Well, okay. I'm glad you guys watched it anyway. I enjoyed myself in it, and I was thinking like this. To me, I was watching it, I was thinking this is what good cinema is. Like to me, this is like pinnacle cinema.
See, I got that feeling from Lord of the Rings.
I do too. Lord of the Rings absolutely as well. Like it involves all the emotions. Like it gets you stirred up, anxious, fear, sadness at the end when the Lord dies in his throne and is kind of like respected, if you will. I mean, I don't know. You don't have the little stupid stuff where there's plot armor. Like anybody's unsafe in there. They have 13 warriors. 9 of them are dead by the end or whatever, you know, and you don't even know who's going. It's not even like the dumb ones. Some of the cool ones die right at the beginning. I like that kind of stuff. It seems a little bit less.
I do too. Like I thought the story had a great like promise to it. I just wish certain interactions would have been better. I wish the voyage across would have had more emphasis on the way he did it. I wish they'd have he's learning the language stuff. I wish that had developed over times of months, like it would have taken on that journey.
But it did.
I know it did, but they did. But
with different temperatures and rainstorms and climate and all that stuff, all these different fires. It was just
but they cheapened that out by doing just like the interaction of the faces and him watching the lips and stuff. There was true different interactions would have made that would have bolstered his camaraderie with the Northerners also, instead of just like, oh, hey, look, he can speak our language now.
You risk making it boring by having that too long, but I hear what you're saying. They could have made it a little. Pardon me. They could have made it a little longer than they did on that scene. The other thing that I liked about this, I didn't catch that the costume shouldn't have been in existence at the time frame. Like that's something I wouldn't even know. But I like the fact that the costumes, the outfits that they're wearing, the equipment that they're using is not all Hollywooded up. They're not crystal clean. They're scrubby looking. They're dirty. They're as if they would be. Like
I did like that part. Everyone was dirty and filthy.
Like where every scene they break in and they're like clean, freshly bathed, and their armor's perfect and spotless, and their swords look like they were made in some sort of amazing. These swords were hammered. You could see all the like hammer marks on the weapon, even from the king. Like they were blunt, like not well done instruments of death.
They were way too sharp though. Like the way they're just hacking through the logs like they're pool noodles. I'm like that. No.
Samurai sharp on a hammer beating.
Samurai swords break too. They're terrible swords. All swords. I mean, they just don't do that. I mean, an axe doesn't do that. It's just, yeah. I mean, I get that they wanted to have the trope there, but I liked the overall feel of it. I didn't like the execution.
Fair. That's fine. I'm glad you guys watched it, at least. Gave it a shot. Ryan tuned out already. He's like, yeah.
Well, you guys were talking, and I didn't want to interject, so it was all good. You were going back and forth, so it was fine. This movie was okay. Music was good. It was okay. We had a super chat. Big Street Cinema, 27 SEK says, what do you think about Elite Screen Cinewhite A8K acoustic? Thoughts? How big is that screen?
Can you post it up there, Ryan? The question? I haven't seen that screen. I hate to say.
Elite screens aren't cheap.
A8K. Wait, isn't Elite Screens that's the Amazon one? That's reasonably inexpensive, right?
No, I mean Elite is sold on Amazon, but they're not like the Silver Screen is what you might be thinking of. Elite Screen is like a legit brand. They've been around
I know they've been around for a long time, but they're not. Who's the other one that's like Stewart pricing? Oh, that's Screen Innovations. It's not Screen Innovations.
No.
They're a mid-tier brand. I will admit I've only seen a couple of Elite screens. They were solid screens, and I thought they were very grainy. They had a lot of texture. I have not seen that particular acoustic material.
It looks like it's a perf, right? When I just web searched it, it's coming up as a perf. Is that right?
Cinewhite A8K.
I know nothing about these screens. I've never used them. He says a 235-138.
I just want to see what the material is. It's a weave.
Many years ago, I had an Elite screen, and the frame was excellently made, like very well nice aluminum metal, like well crafted screen. But the material, it was a high gain screen, and I couldn't get rid of it fast enough.
This is a 1.1 gain woven, but I wonder how much that gain is.
No.
The screen
it's claimed,
it's claimed to be like 1.3 or something like that, and it was not acoustic transparent. It seemed like there was like crushed reflector glass or dust on it, if you will. Like there was a lot of like sparkle type thing. And this was bulbs. This was 20 years ago.
From Palindrome guy goes right into what you're saying. I know screens are expensive, but have you ever gone to a home theater and thought, wow, this screen is bad? Yes.
Yes.
I don't.
Multiple times.
That's pretty hard to do. Give us an example. Put a name out there. What's a bad screen?
You were just talking about a bad screen.
Literally, the I don't want to badmouth them, but like
don't name names.
We have used a couple of screens in projector comparisons, not the ones that at M-Wave, but in other ones that I thought were particularly bad screens.
I feel like unless you get something that's too like reflective, it's too high of gain.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, gosh, you can go to Joann's and buy blackout cloth for next to nothing, and it's a good screen. I mean, it works pretty darn well.
Typically, I think what ends up happening is not necessarily that it's a bad screen. It's a screen used in the wrong scenario.
Exactly. And I can say the exact same thing because I have a screen. I mean, I've got that screen still on the ceiling back there, and that is a very nice ALR screen, but it is a terrible screen for the application that it has become. It's the wrong screen for that application, and it does not do a good job here. So, but if it was in a mixed use space with side windows, where it's meant to reflect the light coming in from that direction, it would be a great screen. But I did not make a good choice on that screen when I purchased it, thinking I was going to use it differently and it would perform differently, and it was not. It's not the right screen for the room.
Yeah, I think it's more important to just get the right screen for your application.
Yes,
whatever that is. And screens, especially woven screens, are going to have different acoustic properties and attenuations. The weaves are going to be different thicknesses and tightnesses. You've got to figure out what works for you.
That one says it's a multi-layer weave that's like -3 dB average attenuation. It's got a weird gain characteristic too, so it's got to be a heavily coated fiber.
I bet you Pixel Pusher measured it. It's probably on his website.
I don't know if it is or not.
Big Street Cinema says it was $1,500 for elite screens and $5,000 for screen research in Sweden.
Oof.
I mean, if it does what you need to do and is actually the measured gain, right? If it's really the measured gain, hold on.
He did. Pixel Pusher did Elite Screens Acoustic Pro 8K, not a 8K. If it
that's
matters.
Probably it. Bonded woven. That could be it. So, yeah, take a look at his stuff.
3 dB. I mean, as long as it's consistent, that's the important part. As long as the attenuation is consistent across the frequency range, that's where I think it's most important. And
his measured gain was a 0.64.
As long as you have the needed headroom in the speakers and amps to be able to push past that needed attenuation as far as you need to go.
Now, look a little bit lower than that on the AVS chat. He has EPV Cinewhite A8K. Is that?
That's EPV is Elite Screen.
Well, so he has Elite Screens Acoustic Pro 8K and his EPV Cinewhite A8K. And the
Elite Screen Cinewhite A8K.
They're the same company. EPV
60.61 gain.
EPV is the pro side.
Yeah, he says that's like a 0.6 gain, so it's very much.
That's what you would expect.
That's what I would expect. Yeah.
It has 1 point higher contrast than my Seymour XD. But my Seymour XD is quite a bit more reflective at 0.83 on his testing.
Big Street, what projector is this? Let us know. That's really going to dictate. And what's the room like? What's your light control like in that room?
So the reason I was saying that I think it's pretty hard to find a screen that's not good, and I think that can be thrown out the window with some of the newer technology. Like if you get a 3 laser projector, you have to be pretty careful with the screen you get, or you get laser speckle.
But that's more about the application, not the screen's fault.
But if you have a really high gain projector, you got to watch Moray.
To rewind to and hot spotting and all that kind of stuff that you can get into, absolutely, application is appropriate. But the reason I say it, I'm not sure that it can be hard to go wrong, because I've seen just flat painted black, like white walls where they just did drywall and it was nothing but like a Bear makes a paint called Silver Screen, and it's like intended for projector use. It's just the regular price at Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever they sell it at. That looks great. There's a guy in Kansas City who has that, and I saw it and I thought, like, this is way unreasonably good. And then, you know, I've seen so many different theaters with just the cheap Silver Screen stuff from people that buy it on Amazon for $300. And
Silver Ticket's a great screen.
When you walk into the room, you don't think like that's bad material or that's bad screen. That was where my point was coming from. But I do agree that there are applications that can go bad.
I think you're more likely to. I've had every Silver Ticket screen I've seen in the past has always looked good, and they're not expensive. they're generic. I think you get a slightly better screen material from them for not a lot more if you buy it from Sievertson instead, or you rescreen the screen with Sievertson material. But the base silver ticket screen is a great screen. That XY stuff, I guess Andy loves that. We haven't got to see that one. I still kind of want to order a sample of it.
So Big Street says he's doing this with a NZ700 in the future at 135 CinemaScope. What do you guys think on a 0.6, 0.7 gain screen?
I'd want a little higher gain, but that's kind of in the ballpark for a lot of those AT screens. I think those.
Forget the gain of the screen, because that's what a woven screen is. I'm saying, is that type of screen the correct choice?
If he needs acoustically transparent.
Well, woven, I guess, but you could do that with a perf and get higher gain.
You could do it with a perf, but you're gonna start to see perfs depending on the location. And I don't know his seating distance. If he needs to sit further or closer away, certain weaves are going to be a better choice than others. And I don't know if you can find the XY stuff there. Those look like they measure pretty well.
What would you do, Jonathan?
I'm going to send him a link and let him review this Pixel Pusher thing. And he might realize that there's more brands than he thinks there are by just being exposed to more brands. I'm not saying anything against that Elite screen. I haven't seen it, but just, it might be worth his time to like kind of look and see what's out there. So in private chat, because I can't post right now, Ryan, can you put that in public chat that I put in private? And see if that helps him out to kind of just do a little bit more research on his own.
So 0.6, 0.7 gain, he says, from 3.5 meters. I would do at that seating distance, I'd probably do perf. If you're not an absolute audio whore.
Yeah.
He needs some distance behind his screen for perf, so you got to kind of ferret that out too.
Yeah.
Yes. He's going to depend on the distance behind the screen, what his behind screen setup looks like. If he has some,
all things considered, you're going to gain more gain by going perf, which, in my experience, especially as of late, is going to be beneficial, especially with that NZ700.
If you've got reflection, if your screen is going to be right up against the front of your speakers and you don't have some absorption back there, you need more reflections off that. So you might wind up running into some sound issues. I don't know what his situation is going to be behind that.
Yeah.
The lower gain screens like that too will be a lot more compatible with a wide array of projectors. Like you shouldn't get yourself into as much trouble if you got a low gain screen. It's the high gain screens where things kind of get a little dicey.
Yeah. Well, and ALR, because ALR is really just high gain on a black material or a dark material.
This dispersion characteristics or angles, yes.
Yeah. Railer Swim says, you can roast mine, Ryan. Sony VPL VW 325ES with a 150-inch silver ticket acoustically transparent screen in an unfinished basement, definitely pushing the projector in a half-bad lighting scenario. I think whatever works for people is great. I'm simply speaking from my own experience of ideal situations. There is always a compromise in a lot of these situations, and people just need to figure out what compromises they're okay living with. That's important. Most people, I think you'd actually find that a lot more people than you may think Railer Swim are in the same situation that you're in for the amount of nits that are coming off that screen back to the reference seating position. So I don't think you're necessarily in that bad of a position. I deal with Mad VR all the time with cinemas that are getting 60 nits. If that's all you see, we actually talked about this last night, gentlemen, was if you don't have a point of reference and that's all you see, that is your status quo. And it probably is going to look great. Like Jonathan, you brought up that at M-Wave and everybody going through and seeing Chirpy's theater thought the image looked fantastic, but his is actually pretty dim for what we may necessarily consider what it should be. So it's all in accordance to what you're used to. Now, if you put it right next to a brighter image, like what we were doing last night, things change. But if you don't have a comparative reference point, it's
or have
really
been
hard.
distanced from that comparative reference point for a period of time.
Yep.
Yes.
It's that whole salt
difficult to
thing. I mean,
notice.
there's so much salt in food that you add more salt, you don't realize how salty it is until you cut it completely out of your diet or something. And then regular food as it comes just seems incredibly overseasoned. Brightness is one of those things you can get hooked on pretty easily, and you want more. Bass is the same way. I mean, think about how many people run their systems 9, 12, 15, 20 dB hot because they want more and more and more.
Mm-hmm.
And Kevin actually brings up, this is a good segue into tonight's topic, where this talks perfectly to tonight's topic about analysis paralysis. You won't know what you're missing if you just buy a basic silver ticket AT screen. And I don't throw out the screen part of that. If you don't know, you don't know. But if you don't have a comparative reference point, better or worse, you can't compare it, right? If you've only experienced X, you have no way to know what Y is like. So you have no way to say, hey, mine's better, worse, whatever. Just enjoy it. So you've got to, at some point, figure out what is good enough and when do I actually need to just start pulling the trigger. And you also need to figure out, in my opinion, in some situations, is it worth, how can I put this? Is it worth, I can't think of the word. I'll come back to that anyway, but that's a great point.
But at the same point in time, I mean, with this whole topic for tonight, you can't enjoy something, you can't learn what you like if you don't have anything to experience. If you just sit there and think about what you're doing, at some point in time, just have to start and then realize you're going to make a bunch of mistakes.
Do you guys have your own experiences with analysis paralysis?
Oh, yeah.
Where you got into a situation where you weren't making decisions?
No, it's more stuck in research and thinking about overanalyzing everything. Yeah, just
put out one of those experiences. What did you find yourself in?
I mean, just like when I did this the first time, just like spinning wheels on like what screen I want, obsessing about going back and forth between the perfect one for this, reading different reviews, looking at stuff like that. And it's never, or even just with speakers, going to different locations, trying to listen to everything you can everywhere, thinking you need to find the perfect thing at this showroom, but it's never going to be the way it's going to look.
Well, let's simplify this. Let's go way, way back. And let's say that you don't have a way to experience anything else. You're doing this all on research, because I think all three of us have been in this position where when we were first starting out or when we were first trying to make decisions, we weren't necessarily listening. It doesn't necessarily have to be with home theater. It can be with anything, where you're just doing all of this research and I'm going to pull the trigger and then you don't. And then I'm going to pull the trigger and then I don't. Or then I do, but it was the wrong decisions. Then I have to do something else. Then I pull the trigger again. And it's buyer's remorse comes into this a lot. Let's chuck the demo stuff out the window for now, because a lot of people don't have the ability to do that, right? A lot of people don't have people around them that they can go say, oh, I'm going to go experience this and I'm going to go experience this. Kansas City's an enigma in some situations in our community.
But there's still places you can go. I mean, you can go to Nebraska Furniture Mart. You can go to Best Buy. Well, honestly, our Best Buy is.
But is that a good thing?
You can at least see some things. Like, I mean, so the Magnolia at the Best Buy around here is not a terrible place to go to look at projectors. They have dark rooms with multiple projectors set up.
With bulbs with like 9,000 hours.
But they'll give you the remote.
Yeah. But my point is that a good way to make a decision, right? You're trusting that equipment is putting on.
It's doing what is doing, which is never the case in a showroom situation. I think the biggest thing though is if you don't have places to go to see other people's theaters. I mean, I wish so badly that I had been to one of these crawls or been to one or two other people's theaters before I done my own things at the beginning, because I made a lot of different decisions just because you'd never experience what someone else's setup was or how it could be or how it could look. But you're never going to like dive into it and figure out how you're going to use the room, how you're going to use the situation until you actually start using the room and the situation. But But you don't want to do the minimum though too, because if you do the minimum where you throw, like, I want to make this home theater, so I'm going to get a sound bar and a cheap TV just to get me going. If you don't enjoy it, you're not going to use the space. And so, do you not use the space because you don't like how it's set up, or you just, that's not your thing? So,
Jonathan, you've been pretty quiet.
I don't know that analysis paralysis is a good example for me. I research everything to the nth degree, and then I kind of make a decision. I don't feel like I get stuck there. My problem is I research everything to the nth degree too much. Like if I'm buying an HDMI cable, I'll spend like 3 hours looking at specs on HDMI cables and reading reviews when I could just pull the trigger because it's not going to make a whole lot of difference. Like that's
I don't get stuck in analysis paralysis, but I spent 3 hours researching.
But I mean,
HDMI
paralysis to me, like the way that you're describing it, is like
he's meaning never buying anything.
I'm to the edge and I back off because I'm not sure. I'm to the edge.
That's not really what I'm
I
saying.
walk to the edge and jump.
I'm saying that
Go,
you could take it that way, but it's also, I'm just going to keep researching, right? I'm maybe researching too much where I don't really need to on certain situations or certain things.
I would gladly own research too much to my detriment.
Yes.
But then I think I usually make a decision after I spend that time, because at that point I feel like I've wasted enough time. I have to make a decision. Like it's time.
But I think that's a great spot to be in that analysis paralysis state if you already have a space that you can enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can say, like, how is this going to go here? Because then there's something you can, at the end of the day, ultimately enjoy. If you still haven't started, then you just don't have a reference point to actually evaluate anything.
I think it's important. So we're all looking at this from having done this for a long time and researching. I think it's different when somebody is jumping in and they don't know.
Yes.
It's a very different and scary place, right? I look at it, the thing that we've watched recently, it's like the Warhammer scene when they fall down the side and they're in that black room and they can't see anything and there's stuff coming from everywhere. That's kind of what it's like trying to jump into home theater when you have no idea what's going on. There are so many things happening, and there are so many things that need to be considered that to do it correctly, it can feel overwhelming. And then that overwhelming just stagnates, I think, a lot of people, and they're afraid to make a decision. I've been there. I've also been in a position where I would make a decision too fast. I've done that a lot with my overclocking with PCs and flight sim stuff, where I would make a decision too quickly on trying to fix a problem that I was running into, or I would go into my local micro center and be like, I need something to do this when I was doing streaming, because I was hosting these huge tournaments. And so I was looking at things where I need this number of PCIe lanes. How can I do this? And I would ask these guys and be like, oh, you do this. And then you get back and you do it. And it wasn't anything like what you needed because you were trusting somebody else's judgment. So in that case, I didn't do enough research and I was trying to skip the line and it didn't work out for me. So you can go both ways on this, unfortunately. High Finest 3430 super chats on Jonathan's channel. Did I miss one? I don't think I missed one, did I?
Oh, or maybe they couldn't do one. I don't know.
Oh. No, I don't think I missed one. Have you guys seen other people go through this?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I get pinged regularly by private message on AVS forum about people making decisions. And then 6 months later, I'll get another ping saying, I still can't make the call. You know, I'm stuck. Give me some more advice.
What do you think pushes people into that?
That's why I say I don't think that fits me, because I don't really have that type of experience. So I don't know. I'm just like, hey, man, what I always advise people is the same thing you already said. Like there's several threads on AVS forum. I created one of them. I'll demo my speakers for other enthusiasts. I'll demo my subwoofer for other enthusiasts by title. That's the name of the thread. And there's 1,000 people in there that have said like they'll demo their home theater and list their specs. So like my recommendation to anyone who gets stuck like that is find theaters in your area and go visit them and see what you like. Get a taste. They may not all be set up right, but go visit a half dozen of them and see what you like, because it gives you so much more exposure than you'll get in a way better situation, because you can shop to the guy that you're talking to, learn more about their journey, learn more about their history, what they like, it's so much advantageous over just going to Best Buy or something.
So I think that thread that you made the one about subwoofers, if I remember correctly, because there was one existing about speakers. A lot of people posted there. I don't know how much use it actually gets. And I think a big part of the reason it doesn't is because people have this fear of the unknown of, are these people legit? Am I going to come across as an idiot when I do this? And guys, ladies and gentlemen, I want to assure you that, at least speaking from the people in Kansas City, we are just as big of nerds as all of you, if not more.
And we've all made
Probably
a lot
more.
of dumb mistakes.
We just want to talk about this stuff because we think it's fun. That's all it is. So I want to encourage people to understand that reaching out, at least speaking for the three of us in the Kansas City group, no one is going to take offense to it. They will, again, just speaking from my experience with the Kansas City's group, gladly schedule something with you more often than not. I know the three of us would. I do all the time.
Sure.
I have no problem hosting people even from out of town. I do that pretty routinely. And it's just get the gusto and go, I'm going to do it. I'm going to ask, and then get something on the schedule. Because this goes back to the analysis paralysis thing, where we all do this in some capacity, where we'll just say, I'll do it later. I really want to do that. I'll do it later. And then when's later? It never happens.
Yeah.
So with these decisions, whether it's thinking about doing a home theater, whether it's thinking about doing a demo, you got to start somewhere. And you got to put the first step forward into moving in that direction. And a demo is probably the most important thing, especially a properly done demo. And I was a little hesitant at Nebraska Furniture Mart and Best Buy and stuff because there's a lot of abuse for those systems. Like, you don't really know how everything's been taken care of, the implementation, right? Because it's being done by so many people, the placements, all that stuff. It can be great, but it can also be really misleading. So get the demo.
Especially because you need to set your own room up too. I mean, that setting up your own room is a major part of that too, not just finding the right equipment. Getting the space and a configuration that works well for your use and works well as a good listening and viewing environment is a big step too. You can't just, I mean, certain things you can just throw in a bright, well lit, decorated living room, and you can still be happy with it. And there's nothing wrong with that. You enjoy the best theater system is the one that you have that you enjoy using. I mean, it's not the crazy thing that someone else has. I mean, if you are happy sitting down in front of your TV, or you're sitting in front of your projector, watching a movie with your family or by yourself at night, that's a great theater. And it doesn't matter how much you spent on it, as long as you love it.
Yeah.
But just it's getting it in your space. I mean, whether that's starting off with a receiver and a 5.1, set of pro audio speakers or something, a silver ticket screen and a mid-level or low-end projector, just to get it up and see how you like it.
Did you guys both start on your journey before you experienced anybody else's?
Yes. I mean, other than dealer showrooms.
Jonathan, can't hear you. I don't know if you muted yourself.
Yeah, I did. My experience started in high school, so yes, I was kind of like the one that was into this over all my friends.
Did you realize after the first couple things that you experienced, proper demos, did you have pretty big takeaways of things that you could do to improve yours or that you were doing wrong? Or realize through that things that you were doing right?
So I probably didn't experience anything better than mine until 2011-ish. And that's when I experienced subwoofers that dug down to 16 hertz and like opened my eyes. Like, I'd always had sealed subs that weren't DSP'd, so they rolled off at 30 hertz, like capable ones. I had 415s, for instance, but I didn't know anything about DSP. And so I had nothing down low. It rolled off hard at 30 hertz.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like that was like, whoa, I didn't even know this content was here. So, like talking about opening your eyes by experiencing other theaters, that was my first eye opener.
Now, did
And
any?
that was a guy on ABS forum. I had reached out, doing exactly what you're talking about. I had reached out to a bunch of different people and said, like, hey, I'm following you on ABS forum. I know you're in the area. Can I come visit? And it was crickets. Honestly, it was crickets. Like, nobody would ever reply. Like, who's this weirdo PMing me, asking me to come over? Like, I don't know this guy. The only way I got that to work was hosting a subwoofer shootout in 2011. And that visit to that guy's house was part of what's like sparked that, because I was thinking, holy smokes, I don't even know what's out there. If that 16 hertz thing is there, what else is there? Like, what does a Seton Submersive sound like? What does a JTR Captivator sound like? Because those were the subs that were the big talkers at the time. You know, like these are the premier subs. I never heard them. So I hosted that meet in 2011, and I had people from different states even fly in, because I advertised on ABS forum and a thread, and I didn't pay. It was a free thread, but just created a thread, like a meetup thread. And we had a lot of people come. That was fantastic. Did it again in 2012. And then that sparked that creation of that subwoofer, like, I'll demo my subwoofer for other enthusiasts, and the speaker enthusiast thread, like that. Like, those are places where you can go, because like, you're probably, and me too, I'll always let someone come to my house if they ask through PM, because I was on the other side of that for a long time, and I haven't had a bad experience yet. But I do know from trying this myself for years that most people are not like that. Most people don't want a stranger in their house that they don't know from Adam that PMs them on a forum, because you don't know who you're getting. So you kind of got to go to like-minded people in a thread like that, or go to like an M-Wave or a show where like-minded people are gathering and network a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I came at it from a different angle, because I've been into 2-channel audio forever. And I was like, I really like 2-channel, and I was like, well, I'm going to, I'm going to finish the basement space, and I'm going to put my listening room down there. I'm like, well, I've got all this big, giant, empty space. Maybe I just won't do a theater. And so I went at it from the wrong standpoint of trying to kind of like stick a theater around a 2-channel setup, as opposed to build a dedicated theater that is also a capable 2-channel setup, because there's this big misconception that they're not the same thing. Like that 2-channel setup has to be boutique esoteric speakers that sit 6 feet out in the middle of the room and have like up lights on them and cable elevators. And you've got to have this full, fancy set of equipment with it. And DSP is the worst thing that could ever happen to your music, because it will just corrupt it and cause it to explode and turn it into noise. But I mean, this is not how this works. I mean, DSP is so good that there's no
I'm
reason
imagining
you shouldn't use
Bob putting DSP in his stuff and just ooze coming out of his speakers from it being corrupted.
But I mean, like, and then you go with this. There's so many compromises in the audiophile world, like of 2-channel, simply from the refusal to use DSP.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you go out of your way to buy different speaker cables to try to add a passive filter to your system, because you don't want to change a crossover, and you don't want to change your room characteristics, and you don't want to tune the things that you need to, that you could easily do with a little DSP.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't like the way my speaker sounds, so I need to buy different speaker cables to make my speaker sound right. Or you could just use DSP. And everyone's using digital music now too. So it's not like this is starting in an analog format.
I mean, you could consider passive attenuation as analog signal processing.
It is. I mean, you got to crossover your speaker, unless it's just a simple like first order crossover or something. Well, my old Gallo speakers were the only crossover, and that was a capacitor on the tweeter. They had the simplest crossover ever. But I mean, once you accept this fact that it's not a bad thing, it's actually a very good thing. And like, you fix all your issues with your room, you can fix all these issues with your equipment, a lot of them with placement, and there's so much stuff you can do. And then with multi-channel audio becoming so like cool these days, it's a whole unique experience that if you don't have the properly built out, I mean, it's really turning your theater into a multi-channel stereo system, or however you want to call it, a multi-channel listening environment, because there's so much more immersive content out there these days than there was 10, 20, 30 years ago.
Ryan, will you paste those the 2 links from private chat into public chat when you get a chance? That's the I'll demo my X for other enthusiast thread.
Yep.
And it has by city and by region places that people have volunteered and said, hey, yeah, come over, let's talk, that'll be fun.
Jonathan, you want to take that super chat?
What frequency do you all start your bass rise? DRX starts at 200 hertz and might sound muddier than a 100.
Hi, Finest. Thanks for the $5. Much appreciated.
So we've talked about this a little bit before. whatever you think it is, as soon as you start to increase the bass trim level relative to the speakers, you're actually moving that to the right on a traditional frequency response graph. So you're increasing the crossover point. So let's say you set it at 80 hertz, like THRX reference, or 100 to your example. If you raise the here's your main speakers, here's your subwoofers. The crossover point is right in the middle. Let's say that crossover point is 80 hertz. As you raise those subwoofers, because that crossover, it's not a brick wall. It doesn't just cut off at 80 hertz vertically. It rolls off. It attenuates. A lot of receivers are 12 dB per octave. So as you raise that subwoofer, this line starts rolling off further and further onto the higher frequencies. So the reality is, as you raise your sub trims because you like louder bass, you're also raising your crossover point. And that's okay. Does 200 hertz sound muddy? You can play with it a little bit. It gets muddier as it goes higher, yes. But is it undesirable? No. A lot of pro audio stuff will cross over at 200 hertz. Like if you're out listening to live music and stuff, they'll a lot of times cross over higher.
It depends on the capability of the speakers and the subwoofers.
Mm-hmm.
The easiest way to visualize this, guys, I know Jonathan just showed it, but imagine you got your subs and you got your speakers. They're going to come into each other like this, and they're going to come through here, right? So your crossover point isn't where they meet. It may be back here. So it's all about where your I can't think about how to explain this. The easiest way to put this is that it's not a brick wall. So if I start raising my crossover to 100 hertz, that does not mean that I'm going to start things at 100 hertz. You may be starting your increase way out at 150 hertz, and things may start to come up. So as Jonathan said, as you start to increase your trims, right, you're increasing potentially the bottom end or the mid range of a male vocal, and you're not just impacting things that are in the LFE or below your crossover point. So it's really important to consider that entire region and not just the crossover. Consider at least 100 or 200 hertz above him. Let's say 100 hertz above and below your crossover point for where things are going to be interacting from your mains into your subs.
So if you take that 12 dB per octave slope that's a standard one, I mean, your octave is doubling the frequency of your crossover point. So if you have an 80 hertz signal, or if you set your crossover at 80 hertz, you would be down at 160 hertz, you'd be down 12 dB. But now you've added 12 dB of bass boost, so you're now flat at 160 hertz.
Yes.
So you've added a massive boost at 160 hertz. And then your 12 dB point down is
point. It's not a 90 degree fall off. It's rolling off. So you would be rolling off to the point where you're flat at 100.
I'm saying your reference point though, what you had been at your crossover point has now been shifted out to 160 hertz.
Yeah.
And then your 12 dB, like you had been before down, or originally before down, is now at 320 hertz.
Now, this is all an example of running bass hot, which I think was what the gentleman was asking about. If you're not running your bass hot, you're not really changing that crossover point like in the same way by increasing the crossover point. You're not changing. You're changing it. You're changing what frequencies get redirected to the sub. Like, let's say your subs and your speakers are level. Like, you're not running your subs hot. As you change that crossover point, the roll off that Ryan was trying to showcase this is just moving to the right, but it's not the same thing as far as like if you're raising your trims and you still have an 80 hertz crossover, now you have 160 hertz crossover like we just described. But if you have your subs and your speakers at the same level and you raise your crossover point to 160, it's going to sound dramatically different than if you had it at 80 and you raised the speakers. Like it's
But that depends on how you go about raising it too. If you're just going to say, I want to add more bass by upping the gain of the subwoofers, that's going to cause that problem. Or, turning the volume knob up in the subwoofers. If you create, depending on what kind of processor or system you use, if you create a room response curve or a target curve or a voicing in like Lindorf that generates that gets EQ'd back in there and that's taken care of. That doesn't shift the crossover.
Or you just change your crossover type.
Or change your crossover slope.
Well, you can't on a lot of consumer brand receivers. It's stuck at 12, but I know you can on the boutique stuff like Storm and Trinoff. Another thing that I think is worth testing for some of the guys in the audience, and I've played with this a little bit myself, turn on some 2-channel music and play with the crossover point yourself. Raise it from 80, go to 150, go to 200, go to 250. If your receiver goes that high, a lot of the Denon Marantz go to 250, and listen to how it sounds. And then increase the bass levels by turning up your gain attenuator knobs on your amplifiers or your subwoofer plate amps or whatever, and see how that correlates. So you kind of find out where you like. And always with measurement gear, find out what works well in your room. Because auto EQ, we've talked about this before, we're kind of going down multiple rabbit holes, and there's a lot of rabbit holes to go down here. Auto EQ doesn't always get the crossover right. So it might set it at 60 hertz or 80 hertz or 110 hertz or whatever it sets it at. And you might do nothing more than adjust that crossover point on your receiver and realize, hey, my frequency response graph in my main listening position is a lot flatter just by changing that crossover point 10 or 15, 20 hertz. That happens in my room all the time. Crossovers get set at 70 hertz by Odyssey in my room, and 90 looks a lot flatter in my room at my MLP.
But back to that question,
your time domain changing.
Yeah. I do my
a lot
bass.
of people always look at the frequency domain and forget that the time domain and phase and everything can get way out of whack. Like, oh, I'm great in this capacity. I'm great overall. But they forget completely about the time domain. Which
and they get some really nasty cancellations.
There can be some really nasty stuff.
Yeah.
So Finest about this topic says, so should we do a lower crossover but raise the trim levels higher? You need to do whatever makes sense for your speakers.
You need to do what measures well and then raise your subwoofers to taste at that point, because the measurement at the crossover point, and remeasure again when you're done, really. But I don't know that you need to pick a lower crossover. A good advice that I've found is that you want to do at least half an octave over what your speaker crossover is. And some people will even say a full octave. So if you have speakers that are like...
You mean over your F3?
Over, like port tune is really what I'm talking about.
Yeah, or port tune, yeah.
If you have like a speaker that has a port tune of 45 hertz, then you really should be doing a half an octave higher as a crossover point as a minimum. And some people would say double that crossover or double that high pass filter point, that port tune. So you would do a 90, or maybe you would do a split between 45 and 90. But you should not typically use what your actual speaker's port tune is.
Because if you do it and you're telling it, let's say you tell REW to play a full sweep and you turn off your subs, it is kind of alarming to some people how low their speakers are actually playing past the crossover point. And if the speaker isn't capable of that, you're just going to run into distortion. But then you're going to play that when the subs are on.
But you're also going to run that sound a lot closer to that port tune, and then you're going to wind up with a phase inversion right where you're in your crossover point.
Absolutely. And risk having like some port.
You can fix that, but you have to be aware of it and you have to know how to fix it.
Yeah.
But the higher you get away from that port tune, the less you're going to have with the phase issue.
High Finest, you're asking like you can change the slope if it's worth the effort. It's worth testing and playing with it, and it's even better if you can measure it. So use REW or OmniMic or whatever tool you have to validate what you're doing and how it's affecting your frequency response in your main listening position.
The slope can make a difference and can fix your response.
But there's this issue right there with ported speakers and sealed subs by starting off at a too low of a crossover point. Don't be afraid to run a higher crossover point just because you think your speakers can play low.
Yeah. I mean, what's yours? 100? 90?
I use 90. That's what measures best in my room as the set. And then, like I say, because I boost my subs 9 to 12 dB, now it's up more realistically at like the 150 range or 160 range as we talked about.
My side surrounds I think are in low 100s.
Yeah, you're probably 120, 130 on those.
Somewhere in there.
When I had the Ascendos in my place, I was crossing them over at 110 or 130, somewhere in that range.
I think it's also really important to look at compression testings in your CEA 2034s to figure out where that crossover needs to be to allow for needed headroom. People are like, oh, my speaker can play down to X level. That's great. But what is X level? Do you have an F3? Do you know where that F3 or what level that F3 was actually taken? There's a lot of things that need to be considered to try and stay away from distortion. And in a lot of cases, it leads to a higher crossover than you think. And a higher crossover is not bad with properly aligned and implemented subs.
Right.
And as a completely side note, I realized I never actually answered the original question. I roll on my bass at 70 hertz for music, but not for theater. For theater, it depends anywhere from like 80 to 120.
You do a low pass filter?
So I use voicings in Lindorf. So you can create an overall tonal adjustment for the room, and it applies that to its DSP. So the way Room Perfect works is it tries to EQ the room flat, and then you tailor your custom frequency response for your overall room response afterwards. So I've got 6 or 7 different ones that I like depending upon what the content I'm listening to.
Skylake Pro Cinema, thank you very much for the $1 super chat. Winky face. Thank you. Anything else about analysis paralysis? I mean, we kind of got off topic on the subs, but my advice to everybody is just take the first step.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do something, or you're going to be in a constant state of doing nothing.
I think sometimes if you're frozen, it's also okay to like pick up a used set and just get some experience with it. Something you're not going to lose a lot of money in buying and selling, and just try it out.
Yeah.
And then see where that lands. Like maybe you listen to it for 3 months or 6 months and you're like, nah, this isn't for me. You could try something else. You can get past that sticking point.
Mm-hmm.
You find the point is, do I not like the system because I don't like the way this sounds or the way this looks, and then I need to tackle that, or I just don't like spending time in a dark basement every night staring at a big screen when I'd rather be doing something else. If that's what you like, then that's what you like, and there's nothing wrong with that. You just this might not be the hobby to throw a bunch of money at on your standpoint.
Let's do some questions. So you guys can ask questions in chat. We've been trying to star them as they've come in, so don't think that we've forgotten about you. But we do answer them and as they come in. So first in, first out. So if you asked a question a while ago and you were the first one, yours is going to get answered first here, and then so on and so forth. So Palindrome Guy says, you speak about reference a lot, which is cool, but room size makes a big difference. What cubic feet are you?
Oh God, way too big right now.
I have that somewhere, and let me look it up.
I can calculate it real quick.
Mine's difficult to calculate because I got all these little nooks in here, but I did calculate it one time. I have it on a thread. Let me find
Mine's
it.
3,500.
Not including the stairwell and the hallway, 6,000 cubic feet, and it should be. When it gets changed, it'll be 22 by 5. It'll drop to about 3,000.
Mine is like 132 cubic meters is what I had written down from my calculation in unobstructed airspace. But that's a loose term because my storage area behind the screen isn't counted in that, and that's basically open. And there's a bedroom in the back that's basically open. That's not counted in that. Like there's no curtain. I mean, there's no door or anything. So that's just like this main room and the bump outs that are in here. So it's a pretty big area for sure.
But realistically, the overall size of your room won't matter for a lot of things. It's going to matter more that your seating distance between the speakers. The room size is going to matter a lot more in room modes. And that's something that
pressurization is probably the biggest thing.
Pressurization, but the room modes are going to be a big thing. And then your room gain is going to start to appear at the low frequencies depending upon your room size, and you can calculate that pretty easily. It's the length of your room. Is it squared divided by the speed of sound? Or I can't remember the formulas off the top of my head, but you can calculate that out pretty easily to find out where your bass modes start to increase, and you can find out how much bass gain you're going to get. And there's also good tools online that will allow you to calculate room modes. If you're starting from scratch or you're making physical changes in the size of your room, where you can dramatically cut down the number of room modes to give you a better space, just from a purely dimensional space, you can give yourself a lot less headache.
Schmuck91, have any of you seen the grenade scene in World War Z where the zombies have overrun Jerusalem? I believe the frequency hit below 10 hertz, and curious to see what you thought of it. It's been a long time since I've seen World War Z.
No, but I'll check it out.
Be careful with that one because it's a sub-wrecker. If you
put that on the Spectro and see what that actually shows.
It's a real popular scene, but it's like one. I don't know. It's not my favorite movie by any stretch, and it's like one scene that does that. It's not the whole movie.
Mm-hmm.
So worth checking out. Be careful. Don't just start there. Reference it for the audience at home that might be blowing stuff up.
Is it like Oppenheimer where everybody's like, "Oh, that's so cool," and it's just kind of this.
No, this is legit. I mean, it's got like kind of a reverb decay, like just like a. If I remember right, it's been years since I've watched it too, but like almost like a little short sine sweep as that grain drops and it goes really low, and the explosion's intense. Like it's one of those where you're watching the movie and you're like, "Whoa, where did that come from?" That's unique to the rest of the movie.
I'll have to give
And then
that a
you
shot.
hear subwoofers banging against their excursion limits.
The new X Max, yeah.
I'll have to give that a shot. Kelly asks, I'm currently paralyzed in analysis, debating with myself if I should upgrade my 4 Q Acoustic 2070i subwoofers to 4 Q Acoustic QB12 subwoofers. My theater sounds great as is, but better is better.
I know neither of those subs.
Yeah, look those up. 2070. Q Acoustics. Can I actually find it? It's a little 150 watt enclosure. How big is it? Dual. What are those, dual 8s?
2 170 millimeter.
Yeah,
whatever that is. So then you're going to.
Oh, they're dual 6.5s.
Yeah, I mean that's tiny. Think about a
12.
120 millimeter computer fan, and you're talking 170 millimeters, so it's like just a small portion larger than a.
And then the B12 is just a single 12.
I think the B12s will provide a lot more output.
The B12 is $1,000.
The frequency response on that little 270i on the site I'm looking at is just rated at 50 to 150 hertz.
I saw that. It's like not even a kick woofer at that point.
That's
no, it's a kick woofer.
You're gonna get an upgrade by changing subs to be sure. Now let's look at the QB12. We don't know what that is, so we're not sure if that's where we'd steer you or not.
Let's see. It's
220 watts, 12-inch driver, single 12. How is it
$750?
That's $1,000 for a 220 watt 12-inch. That's not unless you got some sort of deal, a bead on a deal for that. Don't do that.
Yeah.
HSU. Douche.
Is this an overseas?
Possibly.
Maybe that's not.
Kelly, where are you at?
The traditional stuff isn't available to him, at least as far as our U.S. market. Even that one, that B12 is rated. The frequency response they rate, which these vendors are notoriously.
So UK, they're in the UK, and it's 1,200 cubic feet. So it's really small.
They're
the size of my room.
Optimistic about these frequency responses on these kind of products, and
you'll be like a -10 at 28
to 300, which that's not a home theater subwoofer either. You've heard us say a bunch of times that you should be looking for something that does like 16, 18, at least 20 hertz. Like
if you're in the UK,
unless you're in an apartment or something, no, don't do that.
What would I do over there?
Yamo's big over there. Yamo's going to make a lot better product for cheap. Their clips equitable company. Like they have a Yamo D650, I think it is. That's like you can buy those for $300 and they'll play to 20 hertz. I have one upstairs in our bedroom, and it's a 12, and they're not nearly as expensive. Like I measured with OmniMic, like it plays pretty good to 20 hertz. I think their retail is more like $600 or $700, but I bought mine on sale for $300. I'm sure they go on sale from time to time. That's how I got mine.
Yeah, there's going to be some better options, Kelly. I would Yamo, if you want to spend a little bit more. Ascendo has 12-inch subs. I don't know what they're priced at in the UK. Probably around $1,000.
But doesn't Arendelle have some stuff that's available in that market too?
Oh, sorry, I'm talking over you. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, isn't Arendelle available over there too? And they have stuff.
A lot more expensive though, aren't they?
I don't know what their price is on stuff. I'm just looking at things that are available in the UK market.
If he's willing to spend $1,000, you're going to have your bigger players too that are kind of like well known here, like SVS would be out there as well in Europe.
Yeah.
I mean, do they have clips in Europe? I don't know that.
I don't know.
Well, he might be space constrained too, and that's why he wants something with a smaller footprint.
Yeah. It's a 1,200 cubic foot room, so quite possible.
You
But
just
there's
might need
better
to
options than that sub.
Mm-hmm.
Much better options. Last question, and I've been watching. I haven't seen any other ones come in, so people haven't been very ASCII tonight. Albeno Charleston says, I haven't watched the live stream in about 6 to 7 months. How could you? Did you ever finish your theater, Ryan? If so, are there any pics or videos of the finished theater? It burned down. No, it's done.
Oh, I guess he's got a good deal on those subs though. I mean, since they're £375 or £375 on sale.
That's a lot better price than $9.99.
That's better. Yeah,
Okay,
that's better. It's all.
I personally, though, I mean, I just wouldn't recommend a sub that only plays to 30 hertz. Did Spare Change do any measurements on it, man? I haven't seen that review.
I don't know that I'm worried about 30 hertz though, because looking at a lot of content in the spectrograph, there's not a lot down there.
I just told the story earlier that I had 30 hertz subs. I had 4 15s and an Ottoman. I had 2 15s up front. I had 6 15s, and I went over and heard one HSU that's mopped the floor with my subs for home theater, and it was because it was 16 hertz tuned. Like, there's a big difference. I had more output than him. His was more fun than mine.
yeah, but he's got a small space.
All the more reason you just need one.
No, you need the 4 is going to do a much better job for room modes.
Yeah. I would.
And he's going to get a
everything
ton
I
of
own that somebody would like a HSU VTF 15H 16 hertz tune more than 4 of those B12s. Anything I own. Let's try it out.
Yeah,
because those are 30 hertz. If they're true, just 30 hertz subs versus a 16 hertz tuned box that's big, that's high excursion.
His room gain at that size room is probably his dimensions are going to be small. His room gain is probably going to start rolling on it. I know, but his room gain is going to start rolling on at probably 35, 40 hertz. So he'll have a decent amount of room gain for a small size space.
Nope, I disagree.
It'll help, but there's only so much. There's only so much X max you're going to get out of a small 12-inch driver. There's just you're limited on X max and cone size. A 15 class and 18 class is going to give you better output, but if you also have to have the space for them.
No,
Jonathan,
way.
I'm not saying you're not right. I'm saying that a compromise.
There's no. You don't buy a 30 hertz tune sub. Period. End of story. Like, the end. I'm out. I'm not doing it. That's how
I don't know if they're sealed, are they a sealed sub or a ported sub?
I wouldn't buy the Q Acoustic, but that's my personal preference. I think there's better options. Maybe not for $375 anymore.
I mean,
how long ago did you get that Yamo
cabinet?
That Yamo is old. I bought it 2012. I mean, I put a review out on ABS for him. I thought it was a nice little sub for the price that I got.
Yeah, but $375 in 2012 is not $375.
No, it was $300. $300 at the time.
Okay, $300.
And for that matter, we know those. I mean, I would assume. I don't know Yamo's product line. I don't follow it. But if Clips has a 16, does Yamo have a 16? I don't know. Like, they're sister companies. Do they have equivalency?
I don't know. Kelly, you got 27 hertz at 4 2070 eyes, but at what SPL did you get 27 hertz?
Exactly.
Because like we talk about all the time, I can get 3 hertz with this. I'd have to be inside the speaker at a very, very low volume, but it'll do it. So what volume did you get it at, and what volume do you listen at? Because you're going to start running into clipping, would be my guess, and distortion.
So, Oops Sorry says in Europe they might have different goals. The only way that works, man, the only way that works is if you, like we talked about at the beginning of the show, if you haven't experienced it.
Hold on. I can put that to rest. Ascendo is German, and they make an 80-inch subwoofer.
But they're crazy Germans.
They're in Europe. I mean,
and then realistically, all the pro audio sound stuff comes out of Italy. I mean, Italy has got all the big major pro audio, large format drivers and compression drivers. There's a lot of loud stuff that comes out of there.
Yeah. Yep. And it's not only that they make them. There is a showroom in Germany with an 80 in it.
Mm-hmm.
Here, I'm going to give you guys more examples of this because I feel like I'm falling on deaf ears. The subwoofer shootout in 2012 that we did at my house, I bought a Yamaha double 18 Pro Audio subwoofer capable of mid to high 130 dB levels. It's super high low reviewed Yamaha brand, what it is for Pro Audio. It had a tuning frequency of 35 hertz. It would play so loud that you didn't need any louder. The SVS PB12 beat it in the home theater rating by a bunch of guys. We played the same demo clips over and over for subs.
What were you playing?
Home theater clips like War of the Worlds. We played.
But you're playing things. I think what you're running into though is you're playing things that are getting down below that.
As home
most
theater
content doesn't though.
Okay, but he also said he's in an apartment too. So like,
let me finish my story.
No.
The HSU, a single 15, beat the dual 18s. The SVS PB12 beat the 18s. The Seaton Submersive beat the 18. The JTR Captivators beat the 18. The Epic Empire 15 beat the 18. All those singles, well, some of them had dual 15s, but all those single subs beat dual 18s for the home theater experience, which I didn't expect that at that time. I thought it was all about like which one can get louder. It was which one can get deeper for the home theater. Yeah. And it was blaringly obvious in blind testing this, like that which one was the best. And this might have been the 2011 subwoofer meet, but my point is one of those subs, giant box, agreed, may not fit in your room. That would be a criteria why you wouldn't select it.
But there's a lot of decent small sealed subs you can use.
Different experience than 30 hertz tuned sealed subs.
But that's why like a small like 15-inch or like 15-inch sealeds, 12-inch sealeds that have a decent X max and a decent power rating, because he's in a small space, he's gonna, as that subwoofer rolls off, the room gain's gonna roll on, and so he's gonna get that deep extension out of that. So you can do a small sealed sub for that size space, and you can do multiple of them.
My point with it was more of,
I just don't think that's a great sub, but sorry.
If you're basing it on content that is curated for low end extension, yes, the one that has the lowest extension is going to win. But how much of that is in everyday content?
Stitch said, no, it's not right. Yes, that's not right. Yes, that's not torture test. You run into that all the time. In modern content, even if the thing is rolled off at say 30 hertz with some of the clips like the Avengers stuff, right? They've rolled it off at the studio. You can still, that's more the exception. You can still get stuff that feels and rumbles like with the Nearfield sub at the very low frequencies. You can't hear it, you can feel it. And you're not going to get any of that with those higher tuned sealed. And very specifically, Bob, if you had 4 do-it-yourself sealed 12s, I would probably be more warm to that than a vendor-created 200-watt DSP-controlled subwoofer, because you know good and well that they put a hard brick wall filter on that as much as they could, like a 48 dB per octave. You know they rolled that thing off. I've measured enough subs to know that. They'll have that thing go to 30 hertz and it'll be like, poof. There'll be nothing.
Because they are going to excurt the code and damage the drivers. They
don't want to risk returns. They don't want to resist. They want it to keep working. Now, if you did it yourself and you did the DSP, you can boost that low frequency. You can get more out of the driver. You're going to have higher
the high. Don't boost the low. You'll break your driver.
That would make more sense. But buying an inexpensive 12 with DSP built in and a low power amp, boo! I'm out.
I think that's dumb. I'm just fighting with you on the below 30 hertz. Because I've looked at the spectrograph and there's a lot less than people think.
No, I think a couple of sealed like 15s in a small space like that is not a bad option. I think open baffle 12s is not a good choice.
But
for home theater,
when you do find content like what Jonathan is saying, it is a totally different experience when you have subs that can do it.
And
as a perfect example, Imagine Dragons Radioactive. If you look at the spectrograph, it is going way down into single digits. And when the 50 is not on and the 2s are not on, it's like half of it's missing. Because as soon as he starts hitting on the bass drum, when the 50 and the 32s are on, it's like you're in the bass drum. You can feel it just hammering into the back. So it's Jonathan is right. I'm simply saying be careful that you can't expect it in all content. And there is a compromise. Like I saw Stitch say, there's a lot of dark content. The compromise there is a lot of the projectors that do really well at dark can't get as bright. And I feel like now, and we're going to find out how I feel about it on next weekend. But as of recently, I value the brightness more, and I'm willing to tolerate the lower or worse black floor to get the ridiculous ANSI. So, Jonathan, I agree with you.
I mean, I'm just talking from experience. Like 6 15s in a sealed enclosure, which would be pretty equivalent to probably what you're talking about, versus one HSU VTF 15H. And I was so excited after hearing that HSU VTF 15H that I was calling all my friends on the way home and saying, you've got to check out this guy's Luke's house and listen to it and hear it. It's amazing. I've never heard anything like it. I had way more output than he did. I didn't have the frequencies that he had at the time.
So Kelly says, KB12 is a sealed subwoofer. I only chose Q Acoustics as that's what my speakers are. You do not need to match your speakers.
Yeah.
At all.
No, it is sealed. That was just their marketing thing that I read. They called it a quote infinite baffle.
I saw that.
I read that wrong. Sorry, that was my bad.
I don't know what that means.
Yes.
You do not need to match your speakers. A good speaker can match with any good subwoofer, and vice versa.
All right, one last thing, so you guys will think I'm beating the horse. During that subwoofer shootout, that little minuscule SVS PB12, which is a toy compared to the subs we have nowadays in our theaters, multiple people commented in that thread about how that SVS PB12 shook their pant leg. That Yamaha at 30 hertz and above does not have the frequency to shake your pant leg. Your pants will not shake. And so, like, that whole experience, that jaw-dropping fun experience is missing if you're not recreating those low frequencies. Now, if you're in an apartment or some sort of building that shared a small bedroom in your parents' house or whatever, you can't do that. I get it. I understand. But if you're really pursuing this hobby, don't give up that, like, 16 hertz to 20 hertz stuff if you can help it.
Yeah.
16 hertz to 30 hertz. Let's even expand the
Kelly,
range.
I think you can get a much better sub for the money.
But if
I
you can get them
understand that you don't need a lot for that, but $400 a sub, I think you can do better. Anything else? Nobody else is asking questions. You guys are boring tonight. Do we want to talk? I guess we'll stream on. Well, I don't know if I can stream and do this shootout next week. I think my wife may shoot me if I do that.
And
if I do Friday and Saturday.
Or we want to do it Sunday afterwards. Or
Jonathan can't.
That's
Can
right.
you share? I'll put it in private chat again. Can you share this 13-year-old video?
No.
On my channel that shows like the Captivator, which was even just a 20 hertz tune, dropping down to I think 19 hertz. I did in that video to show what 30 hertz sounds like and how it activates the room and the air, the environment, the experience versus 25 hertz versus 22 hertz versus 19 hertz. And like, if you can't experience that, at least you'll see what it's like. And then you just follow it down the register. Like, I didn't have capability to go below that at that time. Now I do. It's fun. That stuff down low is fun. It's not in every movie, but it's fun when it happens.
It is. It is a lot of fun. Stitch, what is wrong with you? Why do we park in driveways and drive on parkways?
MW did have a Mad VR question earlier.
I did ask about Mad VR per pixel tone mapping. MW, with the level of granularity that you're going to want out of that, my recommendation is to just ask in the AVS thread and have Madgy reply to that instead of having me regurgitate what he has said. Just go straight to the source and ask Madgy about that and how that's being done. That's my recommendation. And I don't want to get in the middle of it. I don't like doing comparisons and stuff with that. I try and be nice. Lumigen's good to have around. I think they do a good job. I think we do it better, but ask Madshi. Anything else before we close up? Do we want to have a movie? Lord of the Rings.
That's a big commitment.
Just one of them. Just you guys. We can just do one of them.
So we're starting down that whole track there, or
no? I'm just do the Return of the King.
Why'd you have to pick a 3.5 hour movie? That's like a whole night.
That's only if you do the extended version, which you have to do.
Secret level videos or Lord of the Rings. It's these marathons. I love them. I love them.
They're phenomenal. I want to do it because one, I'm watching it, but because the sound is amazing.
Yeah, that's why I want to wait on those till later.
Oh, it's so good. Okay, fine. We won't do it. You can wait. You guys have any ideas, chat? Jaws? No.
I've been wanting to watch Jaws with my daughters, but they won't even consider it. They're afraid of it.
I'm not doing Jaws.
My older daughters.
What could we do?
Which one of your pick one of your top 5 movies? Let's pick one of your guys' top 5.
Let me
movies.
look at my list. Hold on.
Bob, top 5 movie.
Have you guys seen Alien Romulus?
Yes.
Is that the one where the ship rolls like a donut at the end, or is that which?
No, that's Prometheus.
I don't think I've seen the Romulus one.
Romulus is the one that came out last year, end of last year.
No, I haven't seen that one yet.
This year.
That's the latest one.
It's the latest one.
Yeah.
Have you seen that one, Bob?
I have seen it. You can watch it again if you want to.
Not. Do you guys like horror?
No.
Yes, my wife loves horror and would greatly appreciate you picking anything horror.
I was gonna say Long Legs.
Hot Fuzz isn't good, Tim.
We kicked him out. No.
That's actually decent. Alita Battle Angel, but I've seen that quite a few times.
That is not a decent movie.
You don't like it?
It's not. It's eye candy. Like it's well done, but I don't think the story's good.
Oh, Spaceballs. We tried to. I was like, we're trying to think of like old movies that like we loved as like kids and that we'd want to watch, like introduce my kids to. We turned Spaceballs on and we got like a minute or two into it. I'm like, oh wait, I forgot that this has all those connotations. We turned that right back off.
Tenet.
Tenet was not that great of a movie.
You didn't like Tenet?
No. Did you like it?
I did. I did enjoy it.
Ryan, do you have a bunch of stuff on your list that you still haven't seen? Did you ever watch Moon?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
We talked about Moon.
Oh, we did. That's right.
Yeah. We talked about it. Let's just do Alien Romulus.
Okay.
Because it's a more recent movie. Bob, unless you have another one you want to see.
I go in a really different direction on movies I really like, and only one of them has probably got good, like.
Or do you want to do a concert?
That would be an interesting choice.
Jonathan?
Which concert? If you like,
I don't know.
Yeah, getting them might be somewhat of a difficulty for certain ones of them.
That's true.
Some of these recommendations.
Because I know you could just pop them into Kscape and you've got them. But
Bob, you got to have a top 5 list.
I do, but they're not great. They're not great movies.
They're just too eccentric, you think, for us?
Fine. Let's watch Battlefield Earth.
Yeah, I'm all for that.
I actually kind of like that one.
See?
I know it got largely panned, but I enjoyed it when I watched it 10 years ago.
I like movies that get like sub 20 on Rotten Tomatoes. I mean, I have no problem with that. Well,
we're going down the Battlefield Earth pathway.
We just talked about this yesterday too.
We did.
Well, let's try it. That'll be fun because I remember that. Remember how much hate that movie got?
Yeah,
it is bad.
I'll watch it again and see if I still think it's like.
Jonathan's going to come back and be like, "I adore this movie. I adore it."
Maybe I was in a good mood when I watched it. I don't know. Maybe I did.
It is a bad movie. Big Street. We watched The Man from U.N.C.L.E.
No, you watched The Man from U.N.C.L.E. and then you got that, and then we got that mixed up with
the other one,
Ungentlemanly Warfare. Yeah. And then we watched that afterwards.
Like that.
Remember Mortal Engines?
That's a bad movie.
That was bad. That was the first movie I ever watched in 4K.
Really? I think graphically that was visually that was an appealing movie.
It was.
It was just not.
We got the
subpar
OLED, and that was the first one I ever watched in 4K.
Van Gogh, those are both exceptional movies.
They are both great movies. And then Bob, you and I were both talking about Rocket Man. Have you ever seen Rocket Man?
Oh, is that an Elton John
documentary? No, yes, not that Rocket Man.
There's another one.
There is an Elton John Rocket Man, but this is not the one we're talking about.
Can we watch that one instead? Because Jonathan hasn't seen it.
Oh no,
I haven't seen. It's a comedy. It's comedy. It's a dumb.
It's a very stupid comedy.
Jonathan, you can't go, oh no, I don't want to watch this when you're like, I like Battlefield.
No,
Earth.
when you get that little mischievous grin, I'm worried.
Your kids could watch this movie.
It's like Mr. Bean in space almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I like Mr. Bean.
It's stupid.
Dumb as that is, I enjoy it.
Gary Pye says Matt Damon in The Wall.
I watched that one. It's
a bad
mediocre.
movie.
It's mediocre.
I think Battlefield Earth is a great choice this time. We haven't watched a really bad movie in a while.
Should we that's not true. But... 3000 it?
Battlefield Earth. Fine. We'll do that. I am going to watch Rocket Man. Oh, God. I haven't seen that movie in so long.
When he's in the chair. He's got to reorganize the wires for some reason in the stupid spinny chair because it's the only way to save everything.
And then I remember he's testing the landing and the thing goes haywire and it's spinning around in circles and just smashes one of the guys in the face. I need to go watch that. So Battlefield Earth, and then if you want to go in for extra credit, Rocket Man. Not the Elton John Rocket Man.
We'll come back with very different reviews.
Yeah. Yeah. Jonathan's like, yeah, it was a musical. And if you want to take the Isolation Chamber as a musical, sure. But
this is the 1997 Rocket Man.
Yes.
I've only seen clips of Army of Darkness. Have you guys? I'm sure you've watched that.
I watched it in the theater when it came out. It's a great movie.
I've only seen clips of it.
I do. So question for chat. Do you guys like the movie part of this, or do we just need to get rid of it? A lot of people are throwing out suggestions, but maybe we had more people. We had almost 100 people this time. So Alien Romulus has great audio with plenty of bass, even on my bad subwoofers. Kelly is probably getting quite a bit of room gain with that small room. And
you could say it has awesome bass at 30 hertz and think it does. That's what commercial theaters do, but you're missing stuff. Like he could have a phenomenal experience at 30 hertz and above.
Okay, so he has four. I mean, he has four. He has four of those with each has two. So he has 8
6-inch drivers.
170 millimeter drivers. I only have 12 8-inch drivers.
Yeah, but that's a huge surface area difference even there. How many?
It's a lot of room gain, but
area there. Hold on. So,
and it's not enough, but that's getting fixed.
I've said my piece. I will bite my tongue.
No, I have been corrupted thoroughly by you guys. And
MW says we talk about movies too long. He's like, go on, move on.
Well, Bob gets involved and he talks.
I can't. Yeah, that's usually my fault.
Okay. We can
Kelly
just kick MW out. I don't like him anyway. I'm kidding, MW. I love it. Me and my friends do a Monday movie night. I host Plex for them and we can watch together. It'll sync the film for all 5 of us. We drop in Discord chat.
That's kind of what we need to do with this Battlefield Earth, man.
Yeah.
In the Mystery Science Theater 3000.
We do.
We did that a little bit with one of those Tremors movies, you and I, Ryan, and that was kind of fun.
We do need to do that. How can we do that?
On the old Xbox 360, you could do exactly.
Oh, man. Yeah, you could do that.
I don't know if they have anything like that on the current Xbox or not.
Do a movie section where it's good movies we might not have seen.
So Gary has told you how you do it. he says that Plex will do it. I didn't know Plex would do that. And then sync the film, drop the link in Discord chat. We'll have to see if Plex can do that.
Yeah, but I don't have Plex anymore.
Or we could just drop a Discord channel on the server and just, you know, kind of pick a start time.
Yeah. Or one of us could just play it and then stream it through Discord, and Bob could just watch on his phone.
I would never choose to do that. I just the copy I had did not work, and my wife was not happy with.
I had to do a demo yesterday, and Bob was just sitting out on the floor watching.
Because I knew I wouldn't get it finished if I didn't do it then. We were up too late playing around with projectors.
We were. Okay, Battlefield Earth it is. Not sure when we're going to stream because we got the thing on Saturday, so we may do it Friday. I got to find out if my wife's okay with that. Anything else, gentlemen?
I think we could try this Plex thing. I have a Plex server. You guys have an Apple TV. You could install Plex on Apple TV. We could play it off my Plex server, potentially, just as an option. Try the watch together feature. Although, are we going to be able to find a night where we're all free at the same time? That's another trick.
That is true.
How does it handle bitrate and streaming but when you do that stuff via Plex?
Says the guy who watched a crappy streaming thing of the last one.
Because I couldn't get a better copy of it. That I didn't have to pay $3.99 to rent.
It's probably at the library.
It was, but I didn't go to the library at time. And Johnson County Library doesn't have Blu-rays. They only have DVDs. Or yes.
Is Battlefield Earth on any streaming service?
I've got it on DVD back there.
I have that too.
You actually own it?
I do. I do. It's in my collection right there.
Did they do a 4K
Oh, it's on
version of
YouTube.
Battlefield
It's on Apple TV for $4. I don't think it's...
Some of that stuff you'll find on YouTube on
literally just search channels. It. You can find someone's that hasn't been taken down, copyright struck yet.
Yeah, or just hasn't been ripped down yet. They might do something a little weird with audio or video to make it.
I was talking about you can buy it on YouTube.
Did they do a 4K Battlefield Earth?
I don't know.
It's in Blu-ray. You can buy it on Amazon for $6.
How much is it? Is it even on Kscape? People are going to look at my Kscape collection and be like, what is wrong with this guy?
Gary Pye, maybe send us a PM on ABS forum if you wouldn't mind sharing a Plex link for us or something, and we'll watch it with you, Gary. You can be our fourth man on that or something. That'd be fun. 1080i rip right there. Oh no, he's not. He's saying he's got a 1080i Ti on it. I read that wrong. I read that him saying he had a 1080p version of it on it. That's not what he said at all.
It's not even on Kaleidoscape. Must not have, the 1.5 stars must not have passed their threshold.
It's
okay.
That bad.
Well, it's pretty bad.
It's a 3% of Rotten Tomatoes.
Nice.
It's a 3% of Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh.
3.
I just can't wait to watch and look at their shoes.
Those the big moon boots things,
like the 80-inch shoes that they freaking wear.
Bus trip with someone who has needed a bath for a long time. It's hostile. It's
unpleasant in a hostile way.
Nice.
Wow. All right. Well, let's figure that out. Who's PMing you, Jonathan?
Nobody. I read the comment wrong. I thought Gary had it on his Plex server, but no.
Oh. Okay. Well, I'll leave you guys to it. I'm ready for next Saturday. We just got to figure out some stuff. I guess the room works, so
yeah.
We'll get to it. But gentlemen, have a good evening. Chat, have a good evening. Everybody stay safe out there. Battlefield Earth is where we're going. Buckle up on your moon boots.